So Heroes is what you're most known for, and I wanted to have a conversation with you about the superhero industry. Heroes came out in 2006 and roughly coincides with the MCU that started in 2008, I believe, the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yep.
And the industry for superheroes has certainly changed since then. And I wanted to hear what you think has changed. My thought is that the storytelling has changed and the character development. Heroes is very unique and groundbreaking to this day in presenting heroes as ordinary people that discover superpowers and in an ordinary, relatable world. And that's very different from what you have today. I want to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah. I mean, well, listen, the truth is there was really no other version of doing Heroes at the time, because the networks at that time thought that anything genre was kind of relegated to, remember, broadcast networks were just that. They were about broadcasting, about reaching the biggest audience. So television shows, that were successful back in that era, really tried to be all things to all people, right? You didn't have these little nichified audiences where, a fractured audience that if you like to watch this kind of show, you go to this particular platform and watch their shows. These networks needed to reach as broad of an audience as possible. And so there was a belief within the network culture at the time that genre, superhero, comic book, anything having to do with that was just simply too small of an audience, and to try and do. So in a way, Heroes had to have this almost Trojan horse approach to having a superhero, genre underneath it. It had to sneak up on the audience in other ways. It had to be, in some ways, Heroes was designed to be all kinds of shows combined into one. And the truth is, I was not a genre guy. And maybe that's what made it possible for me to actually pull this off, is I didn't grow up as a comic book guy and a big genre guy. I didn't really know the rules. I didn't really know that much about the genre. And so I was approaching it at the time. I wanted to do a show about, I wanted to do an aspirational show about the world that we were living in. It was post, it was post 9/11. And after that, there was the world was a very scary place for a few years after 9/11. And we had shows that became sort of jingoistic, shows like 24, and shows like that were very much about, the killing the other, going after people that are. And I started thinking about, well, how could we do a show that was sort of aspirational? I was raising kids, small children at the time. They're now older, but they were small at the time. And I was thinking about the world that they were going to inhabit, and what kind of, where were the heroes for them going to come from when a lot of the institutions had broken down. And so I started to think, well, wouldn't it be aspirational and inspirational if the heroes that could save the world were, the kid next door, or the weird guy down the street, or the kid that sits in the back of the classroom that nobody pays attention to. I started to think that rather than even ordinary people, I was like, what if they're like hyper ordinary, like the kind of person you would not even look twice at when you walk down the street, and that they would have the powers to do this. I thought would be very relatable for people, and so I wanted to treat the idea of a superpower not as I wanted to. It'd been relegated to this fantasy idea where everybody understood what superpowers were, and you put on a spandex costume and you were, but I wanted to do like, what would happen if you woke up and you thought you could fly. You got out of bed and your foot hovered over the ground for 6 inches or something like that, and then it dropped back down. What would you do in real life? What would you really do about that? You know, you'd panic at first. You'd think maybe something was wrong. Maybe you had some kind of like balance problem, a physical problem, you know, or you thought you were going crazy, and then maybe you go talk to a shrink about it, or talk to a priest about it, you know, whatever it is. How would you really react to these things? And in truth, I wanted to treat them almost as though treat these superpowers and the awareness of the growing awareness that you were changing. I wanted to treat it almost like as a curse or an affliction. And you know, if you are a person who's, you know, you've got a job that you don't like, and you're trying to date this woman and it's not going well, and you've got a mother who's dying and you're trying to take care of her, and then you discover that you've got this superpower, right? Well, okay, I'm still trying to date this girl. I still have this job that I don't like, and I'm still got a dying mother. And how's it help my life that suddenly I find out I've got this superpower? And I thought that was an interesting way to create drama, is to treat it as though it's this affliction that you have to learn about. And then once you learn about it, then you have to perfect it. And once you perfect it, you realize you can do something with it. And then you realize, oh, I've got a destiny to do something important with this. So that was the arc I was trying to. And so that lent itself, back to your original question, it sort of lent itself to going through the portal of a very of treating this as a kind of an relatable, ordinary,
Yeah,
storytelling.
also